Hey, Russell.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So, Russell, what the hell is a fractional CMO?
In today's day and age, that's a great question. It's almost easier to answer what isn't a fractional CMO. What I believe the role of a CMO, fractional only describes the amount of time you put in, right?
Right.
It's the same work, the same role, the same responsibility. You're just buying it in a fractional manner. So that smaller businesses can afford it. That's kind of the definition of fractional, whether it's CMO, CFO, COO, whatever. But the roles and responsibilities of a CMO at the highest, simplest level are to take the company's limited resources, time, money, and opportunity,
Right.
and make the decisions to deploy those resources to help the CEO achieve his or her vision. That's it.
Okay. That's a good answer. Okay, then. So let's pivot into our favorite podcast scenario, right? You've just started a brand new engagement. It's going to be a year long. You think today's day one, new client, new everything. Tell the audience a little bit about you and then tell them what the first 90 days looks like from the fractional CMO's perspective.
What kind of business?
That's up to
So
you.
you can't. So you can't. So I'm the CMO going into a new
Yeah.
business.
You just signed a new client.
Well, okay. So here's the thing: you can't take. This is one of the issues I see in marketing today. Is a lot of people have their toolbox, their of
Right.
strategies, and regardless of the company, they go and try and shove this square company in a round hole, and that's not the way it works. So I would have to say, look, let's define what is the business. Is it direct to consumer? Is it B2B? If it's, let's use, for example, a B2B SaaS company. Um, if I'm your CMO, the first thing I'm going to want to do is tell me where are you taking this business in 2, 4, 6, 8 years, and what's your exit strategy? If you don't have those defined, um, I could be building the wrong house. This is why for my name, I use the name architect,
Right.
because that's what we're doing is we're building this analogous house. And if we don't have the vision drawn from the blueprint, maybe I'm going to end up building you an Adobe house when you wanted a colonial. And because I can tell you, if your vision of your business is to have a lifestyle business where you work 3-4 hours a week and make lots of money and all your employees do everything, that's one marketing plan. if you're um, if you're a B2B company looking for, like a tech startup looking for a PE exit,
Right.
that's an entirely different marketing plan. They are not the same thing. And, a third would be a legacy business to pass on to your children. So you can't do all at once. And I need to know where those anchor points are so that
Hmm.
I'm building today what matters to you tomorrow. Once that's clear, we're going to actually get into the financials. If you're not a startup, if you're a existing business, I'm going to go find who is your most profitable customers and what are the most profitable products and services. And I'm going to work with your CFO to determine that, because marketing is very expensive. And I want to, if we're going to be deploying those limited resources, I want to make sure that when we get the marketing working, it's attracting your most profitable clients and customers. So we start there and then we define that. And then I use a math equation called the master marketing equation. Once we've identified your most profitable customer, we define that as your ICP or your right person. And from that, we do the customer research that says, well, what is the message they need to hear from you in order to raise their hand and entertain the idea of doing business? And then where do they go to solve their problems? That tells me what strategies to use to go find those people. And so this master marketing equation is, if you show the right message to the right person at the right time and place, chances are you're going to get marketing that works. And the little monkey wrench and all that is that the right time and place and the right message are 100% dependent on the right person. So it all begins with that. You need to have who is your right person.
Right.
And if you use your financials to determine that, then you can at least confidently say, look, if we get more of these people, we know we're going to make money. And of
And did
course,
you
my gardener showed up.
and did you tell folks who you are? Oh. Kathleen, your cat had strong opinions about what Russell was talking
Oh
about.
my gosh, I
So
am
you're a
so
marketing expert. Hey, so while we're waiting,
Mhm.
speaking about like a real life example of taking like like a plan and overlaying it without paying much attention. For a while, I live in North Carolina, but for a while, going to school and early career, I lived in Nova Scotia, Canada, and there is a really pretty like United Nations historic site. Go for the seafood restaurant, fishing village kind of place in Nova Scotia called Lunenburg.
Mhm.
And the reason that it's a historic site is because uh, during the days of the British Empire, of course, Canada was part of the British Empire for quite a while. Uh, Someone had decided that they could design the perfect British Empire colonial town, and so they put together like a plan, kind of a grid and a plan, and for whether it was Jamaica or Nova Scotia or God knows where, right? They would just like, here's the town plan. Now build into this. The problem is no one really paid attention to geography when they were doing this. And so Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, especially if it's your first time there, and God forbid you ever go there in the winter, is one of the most treacherous places to drive that you've ever been because it's Canada, so the roads will get slippery and icy and snowy, right? But they just laid this grid, even though it's a seaside town. Like the roads, the steepest road I've ever been on in San Francisco could not match Lunenburg. But it is perfectly laid out in that
Oh,
grid pattern according to the plan. But because of the geography, it's completely ridiculous and should never have been implemented. But now it's preserved. And so, but yeah, it's terrifying because you're going down this like ultra slippery, steep hill, and like what's in front of you is the ocean, the Atlantic, right? If you don't do this right, you're gonna go right into the. So Russell was talking about. I don't know why, but it reminded me of Lunenburg and said, "Man, yeah, I remember
yeah,
the two
yeah.
times I went to that town, once in the summer and once in the winter." I said, "It is a very different experience coming here in the winter. In the summer, it's just annoying, but in the winter, it's like life threatening." Oh
Oh
well.
my gosh, go back to North Carolina. I went to grad school there, so I'm glad you.
Yeah, I like it here. Okay, Russell, you're back. So I don't think you introduced
Yeah,
people
sorry about that.
yourself.
Perils of summer. Say
Yeah,
what?
I don't. Did you introduce yourself? I think you went
Me?
into the question, but didn't introduce yourself.
I went right into the question. Yeah. I'm Russell Lundstrom. I'm kind of just a serial entrepreneur where I've started, I don't even know, 25 different businesses. Always, and I start them with my sister. Um, and I'm always in the role of marketing. She's kind of on the finance ops sides.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've done everything from supplement businesses. We started a hedge fund, clothing companies, apparel companies. I mean, it's quite across the board. And if I can add any value, what I do have is a crap ton of arrows in my back where we've made every mistake in the book,
There you
and
go.
just been around a long time. And I've been fortunate enough to sell a couple of businesses and have exits where now kind of my legacy is to kind of help the small business entrepreneur. That's what I live and breathe for, are the
Right,
entrepreneurs.
right on. So, Kathleen, hi.
Hi, Dean.
So, Kathleen, tell folks a little bit about you, since we just finished hearing about Russell as well, and then same scenario. You just signed a new client. Today's day one. Like, what problems do you go looking for? What situations do you normally see for the kinds of clients that you normally work with?
Sure. My name's Kathleen VanDervort. I am a fractional CMO as well as consultant for a company, Label Free Marketing. I believe that marketing is not a one size fits all, but really it's taking away those labels and really getting into the psychology, the heart of the person. And that is represented no matter what industry, no matter what size you are in. So I'm taking my experience from my career at Amazon, at Google, at L'Oreal, at E&J Gallo, as well as most recently being the VP of marketing for a company called Torchy's Tacos, which is a QSR chain in the South, and being able to apply this knowledge of what the art of the possible is to each individual company, and really working with that to know the art of the possible, but yet using that frugalness that I have to make the most of your marketing dollars. So what I do when I'm meeting a new client, coming into those first 90 days, it's so important first to set those expectations. What is feasible? What isn't feasible? You're not going to have a complete turnaround right away. It's also digging into what the biggest problem is. The CEO or the president may think they have a very specific problem. Oh no, it's definitely whatever. Our digital marketing doesn't work. But actually, maybe it's not this other. It's when you actually dig into it, maybe it's email. Maybe it's when they go to the store or the restaurant, it's a terrible customer experience. So I could spend all day sending people to the store, but if it's terrible, they're not going to return. So it's really digging in, aligning on that problem, and then being open to reevaluating it going on. It's also aligning on budget early on. You don't want to assign a consultant or fractional CMO with no marketing budget. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your dollars. So aligning on that as well as your priorities. And then I think it's also so important to check in every 30 days, at least. I'm a big over communicator. I want to make sure they know everything I'm doing, because if it's silent, there's presumed nothing. And then ideally in those first 90 days, you have at least one big win to help solidify that trust, to show your value as well, and to keep the momentum going.
So let's pretend then that you're the CEO at your client instead of the CMO, right? At some point, you had to convince somebody, investors or a board or a leadership team, or just yourself, that it was worth allocating the spend to finally bring in a fractional CMO, right? So how are you going to get maximum? How are you going to squeeze every last penny of value out of that person for the time that you have them?
To get the most value of your fractional CMO or marketing consultant, you need to be very clear on what you need them for. And with that, you need to make sure that your company has very clear goals.
Right.
Oftentimes I come into companies and they don't really know their goals. And it boggles my mind. I can't help you unless you have those set up. I will happily help you with that and bring my knowledge of category management and my MBA, my business experience to that realm. But we need to make sure we align on those. I want to make sure that coming into that CEO, you're hiring me, you're trusting this person and not questioning almost everything. We got to build that trust together. I will do the little test if you want to do that. We got to make sure we have that trust and a check-in as well. And then also being an advocate for them and being clear on that, because there's always going to be pushback. When people are around, consultants or fractional CMOs, they can quickly be, the victor and the winner, but they can also be very quick to be, this is the person to blame, and easy out. So you need to also be able to, when things are going wrong, be their cheerleader, make sure that they're knowing what's going on, as well as including them in other leadership pieces. Really see them and include them as part of the team, but also be very decisive in where you need to include them. If there's big leadership meetings, they should be there. They need to be there. They need to be listening and being a seat at the table. But if it's just tactical little initiatives, you don't want to waste your money there. Parkinson's law is that people are going to use the amount of time and do work in that amount of space. So if you are a fractional CMO, you want them focusing on the very small pieces. And I think myself, like everyone, when I have a short time period, I'm going to really be efficient and get the most bang for your buck versus if I have all day to do it.
Right. Russell, let me invert that question a little bit. You work with multiple companies, right? how does a company typically, a CEO especially, how do they waste the money that they spend on their CMO? What do they keep doing that they should stop doing, or what do they not do that they should do in order to make sure they're getting like value?
Well, I think Kathleen said it right. It's they don't know what they want. They don't have their objectives defined, whether they're short-term or long-term objectives. You're just when you come in fractionally, that almost implies you're not W-2, right? You're
Right.
1099. So and like she said, you're going to be the first to get blamed for everything because you're the easiest to cut. Just almost literally, like it's so much easier to fire a 1099 than a W-2. You have no liability, all sorts of
Mhm.
that stuff, right? So the problem is a lot of people start in these engagements, and I've worked with hundreds of agencies too, where the scope is real ambiguous. They don't know what the end zone looks like. They don't know
Yeah.
when they hit a win, and they don't have the milestones in between the two to get them there. And so you end up with this ambiguous relationship of where you're doing what you think is great, and the CEO is like, "Look, I hired you to give me leads, and I've had no leads." I can't tell you how many times I've heard that one.
Hmm.
They don't care that you're creating this great content engine or
Right.
distribution channel or backlinks for your SEO strategy. Most CEOs are not marketers. They're the visionary that had the idea for the product. They're Alice the baker, and all they care about is the result. And if you don't define what that result is, yeah, you're going to end up wasting their money, time, and worst opportunity. So yeah,
Right.
you're as a CMO, right? That kind of you're responsible. It's the buck stops here role. And if you go into that engagement and don't define that, kind of hanging yourself out to dry.
No. All right. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So let's imagine, Russell, then that you're still like the client CEO in this case, right? You've brought in the CMO. You're looking at your marketing team. Now, your marketing team might just be like one or two staffers, right? Or it might be, a little more fleshed out
As
than that.
most.
They've probably had supervision or maybe even a manager. This is probably the first time anyone on that marketing team at that company has had anyone in the leadership role in marketing at the C level, right? So you're the
Yep.
CEO, you're looking at this team, you're looking at this person in today's day one. Like, how is that team going to be different or ideally better at the end of 12 months compared to what they are today on the CMO's first day?
So again, it's different for a startup than an
Hmm.
existing
Absolutely.
business, but with an existing business, this smaller team, where we always start at the objective. What's the end point look like? So we know whether we celebrate a win or we need to adjust and change, right? And I think Mike Tyson said it best, right? The best laid plan is great until you get hit in the face, and no plan ever works according to plan.
No.
So the way we do this is if you plant that anchor point out there and say, look, this is what success looks like, and we have this amount of resources to get us there, may or may not get there, but there's a lot of course correction along the way. Um, I think the world of marketing is extraordinarily overwhelming because there is limitless opportunity on choice. And when you combine limited resources with unlimited choice, that's where you get analysis paralysis and
Right.
a ton of waste. So what we're going to do is, once we've defined everything, how much money we have to get a new client, how much it costs to get a new client, what's a new client worth to our business, what's the LTV. That allows us to set our budgets, and then we can go and we do our proper customer research where we know the right time and the right place to do our marketing, which allows us to optimize spend. And then whatever those look like, whatever channels we're going into, almost like an inventory,
Right.
we have KPIs, and everyone is just held accountable. And I don't care if it's even, I'm not sure what business benefits from just, hiring a Instagram person to put a bunch of posts out there for your business. But, let's say you do, that is still an output. That's an expense to the business. And you better be able to track back some sort of a return on it. And that's
Right.
terribly difficult on general social media and content plays. But if you don't treat it that way, if everyone's just doing willy-nilly, that's not a business. That's a bunch of people running around spending your money.
Right. And Kathleen, for your clients, in your experience, like how does the team look? Like, what's it like a year later than it is when a fractional CMO starts? Like, size, skill balance, inside versus people versus outside people. Like, how are they different or ideally better?
Ideally, coming into a new team, whether you're coming in and there's one marketer, a couple marketer, maybe they're just using outside agencies.
Mm-hmm.
First piece is you need to build that trust with them. You are an outsider. They might be worried about, is this person going to take my job? Am I going to look bad in front of them? So it's coming in and having just an honest conversation, I think, with each individual junior employee, to really let that guard down, let them know that, hey, you're here to help them. You are their partner. Also seeing them as a coach. Their role oftentimes in these smaller, to gain that trust, oftentimes in these smaller companies, they're not going to have money for internal training or external, development. And so my role as to the team is to also serve as an educator and coach when the CEO or past manager probably didn't have the time to be able to do that. So not only am I coaching them and giving them that empowerment, on a year later, they'll be able to have more bravado, being able to have templates and processes, being able to have reporting. And not only that, being able to analyze the data, being able to lean in on where their skills might be a little lower. So for example, taking my learnings when I was in Amazon, and it's very quantitative, analytical mindset, and being able to bring that to a more CPG, more brand focused E&J Gallo winery, and then being able to bring those to different areas, you're then able to balance and create these opportunities that they feel empowered. So after a year, these smaller companies, whether I'm then working on RFPs and hiring agencies, you're still making them feel part of the team and empowering them so that a year later, they feel more confident. They have the tools and the processes so that they're so equipped that you can almost you're trying to get yourself out of a job almost. They're so empowered. They know their stuff so well that they don't even need you.
Okay, Kathleen, so I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to wind down here. So I'm going to tell you the two questions and then, or rather a heads up. So I'm going to ask you a question, but before that, once I'm done, you're going to get to ask Russell any question you want. This is episode 94, 95. We've been doing this for about 15, 20 episodes now. Some of the questions are fantastic. I really love them. And so you'll get a chance in a second to ask Russell a question, and then he can ask you one, of course. But I do want to ask this, and I'm not trying to be mean, but like there are easier ways to make a living, right? So like, why this job? This can be an enormously frustrating job. Okay.
You're right. And it is hard. Yeah. I am not, this role is very much, it's almost part sales. And that is not my forte. I will put that out there. I'm not a salesperson. In high school, I tried to sell door to door on what was that makeup brand? And now I'm completely forgetting, with the Corvettes. And this is how bad I was. I would just feel bad when people say, I don't think I need that. I'm like, yeah, you really don't need that. So this role is a lot of selling yourself, and people who have that confidence, bro, I give them quite kudos to that. But what I absolutely love when I do get to meet different clients, and that's where I have the best experiences, is when I do meet them one-on-one, when I do meet them in person, when I meet them in conferences, and then they start referring to me to other places. That's where I gain the most impact, because you're oftentimes able to make such a difference right away. And you're working with such different people and such different problems. And because I have the experience working with multiple industries, working with multiple sizes, and being able to use that psychology to be able to speak to different personalities, I love that I can truly try to understand each person and make ideally a quick difference no matter what they need.
Okay. And what question do you want to ask Russell, the other fractional CMO? And yes, of course, you guys are randomly paired, right? There's no curation here. You're randomly paired, so you're in a conversation with like someone that just like drops in.
Yeah, Russell, I want to know, what's the craziest client situation you've ever been in? Customer, client, whether it's a situation or they ask you the craziest asks or most out there. No, that doesn't work.
Crazy defined on the negative bias, not the positive bias.
It could be positive, but yeah, usually like as a word of caution to anyone who's out there who might think maybe this is a good idea, or maybe they think their own ideas aren't so bad when they hear about what other people are asking you to do.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's crazy happens on the daily. And I think like one of the biggest learning experiences would be this idea that, so we started this supplement business in 2012, and the goal and dream is, you know, at least back then, was to have a scalable Facebook campaign or some sort of paid media campaign. And so I think this was in year 2 of the business, we hired one, and we were like, all right, we're going to get into Facebook and we're going to scale Facebook. And we hired, you know, one of the gurus, big name dudes who could, you know, change the world for us. Mm-hmm. And long story short is we ended up spending like 50 grand with this guy, both through media spend and his fees. And we got 2 sales of a $60 supplement off of it. And, you know, at the end of the day, what we realized was he was good at buying ads and spending our money, which is the traffic side of the equation, but he didn't pay attention to the conversion side of the equation at all.
Right.
And my point was, you know, he's like, well, I keep testing all this stuff. And I'm like, well, you had to go spend $10,000. You couldn't call it at that. You had to go spend 20, 30, 40. Like you couldn't stop at 40. Why did you spend $50,000 of our much needed capital before telling us your funnel sucks? Right? Like that's the kind of thing that's crazy. And I see it all the time, right? Particularly in, well, I won't get into it, but like SEO is great with that stuff too. Oh yeah, $5,000 a month for 10 months and maybe we'll get results. That's crazy.
Well, on the flip side, he was an optimist.
Yeah, well, we all were. That's the thing with entrepreneurs, right? Everything's possible. So we're like, we don't mind, you know, and that 50 grand nearly put us out of business. But at the end of the day, it was a hell of a good learning lesson too. So you chalk it up at that.
There you go. Okay, Russell. So I have a question for you. And you've already talked about earlier in your answers about the like why you do what you do. So I'm going to give you a scenario, and then it's your chance to ask Kathleen a question. Okay. So one of your friends comes to you and says, "Hey, Russell, like I'm not sure exactly what you do, but you keep talking about you're like a high up marketing kind of guy. My kid graduated from college recently, and they've just started their first full-time job. They're the most junior person and newest hire in a marketing team that also just brought in a fractional CMO. Do you have any advice for someone just starting out in marketing today, 2024, as far as like what their marketing career could look like and what they should be doing like now to prepare for that?
Yeah. You know, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's the same thing. What the heck do you want the endpoint to look like? If you want to be, I think maybe a more refined answer would be, what are the best skills to be a CMO? You know, if you want to be a CMO, that's technically a managerial position. I don't do a lot of creative marketing. I'm looking at numbers, I'm looking at spreadsheets, and I'm looking at KPIs, and I'm managing resources and people. If you're just getting started in marketing and you want to be a little bit more on the creative side and really good, I believe the number one skill you can have in marketing is copywriting. You know this as well as I do. It touches everything, and it's not content, it's copywriting.
Right.
That distinction has been lost in the world of social media. I would bone up on my chops on copywriting, and I would get really good at one thing and then start branching out, like become the webinar expert, become the SEO expert, like whatever your thing is, whether it's traffic or conversions. Get good at that and start building on top of that. Don't be a mile wide and an inch deep where you know a little bit of everything, but you can't do anything. Yeah.
All right. That question for Kathleen.
Provide value.
CMO.
Say what?
A question for Kathleen, who you were
My question for Kathleen, yeah. So I'm always curious. I've only ever worked with, and the only people I know are small business owners, like under 20 million in revenue. And it sounds like you have this great corporate Fortune 500 background. You mentioned Amazon and some of these bigger companies. I'm always curious, like, what is that like? Like, is it, you have a true budget, and do you get accountability, and like, we got to generate these numbers? Like in Amazon, they're not saying, okay, we need X number of leads at this cost. Like, I can't wrap my head around what is a higher level role in a big corporation like that actually look like on a day-to-day?
Sure, that's a great question. The question of being, what is it being like at Fortune 500 companies? I've been at Google, I've been at AOL, back when that was a thing, been at Amazon. And there are many aspects that are very similar to smaller companies. Even when you're in these larger companies, you see the house of cards and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is actually going to fall any moment. There are many fires. It's oftentimes just as, I think, running around, sometimes wearing many hats. Oftentimes, because they're so big, you can be a little more niche in your area. But for example, when I was at Amazon, first I was running the toys team, and then went on to help launch luxury beauty. When I was on, for example, but with both of them, when you're talking about numbers and accountability, yes, you're not looking at leads, but I am analyzing, where are my toy sales going day over day? How are they going week over week? How are they going year over year? What are the seasonalities of them? And then how can I grow this business? Is it doing more certain types of ads? Is it pulling in more international opportunities, whether it be supply chain? I'm looking at some of the higher demand products that maybe only have 2 sellers. So how do I increase the number of sellers? I'm working with some more B2B marketing on that aspect. And so it's not the exact same. My end KPI there was indeed sales, but I'm looking at the time on site. I'm looking at, how are they bouncing off? When I went to help launch luxury beauty, we worked on a virtual try on, because we noticed that people were coming on the site, but because you're suddenly seeing a $60 lipstick that, you don't know if it's going to be any good or bad, versus a $4 one, you may not get it. So this is at a time when, buying high-end makeup online was not too common. So how do you ease that customer experience and that knowledge? So it was creating virtual try-on experiences. It was doing much more of a branding approach that looked more luxury and high-end to kind of ease that customer experience. So coming back to that, where it launches is that I was able to gain so many areas of rigor and those arts of the possible while being in these larger companies, and accountability, but then also being able to bring those to the small companies. It's so applicable to both. I think many people think, oh no, if you don't come from the startup experience, you don't understand it, but you really do. The only thing that I think you have to be ready for when you're in these smaller companies is to be wearing many hats and to never say, that's not my job.
Yeah, thank you. May I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Sure.
Because you're almost, and I may be using the wrong language, but you're kind of like a part of a bigger machine, and you want to come in and do your job and add your value like you want to, do you find that it feels to me like you need to be almost more resourceful to figure out how to achieve your objectives within this bigger machine that maybe you can't control, right? Like in an Amazon, you're not going to go update the ad algorithm or be able to get this company, you're not going to go change the Amazon landing page experience, being the head of the toy department, right? Like you have these limitations and you almost do have to be more. Is that an accurate assessment of it?
I agree. You have to be resourceful in a different way. So I had to be
Yeah.
very much a squeaky wheel and going to find the people that were in, for example, when I was dealing with a counterfeit Elsa dolls when Frozen came out, going and working with our supply chain team, going and working with people in the within the actual utility centers, how to find them, how to make friends with them, how to pull them, how do you create different alerts for these different areas, how to then, because that's also affecting your customer trust and your supply chain and how you work these different pieces. So you also have to, but they also have asks coming in from every other place. So how do you be that squeaky wheel?
Everyone's getting
Gain that
pulled in a
trust?
million different directions.
Yeah, and so it really is. I learned how to be the squeaky wheel, but how to be polite and deliberate about it, but to also, again, never say that's not my job. You have to, someone who says that's not me, that's not how you succeed. You have to be open and be excited and hopefully embrace that learning opportunity.
Cool. Thanks for that.
All right. So, Erica, who should be contacting you these days and how should they do it?
Sorry, who, Dean?
Kathleen.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen. There's like an Erica name on my
I go, yeah, it's
like what?
Yeah.
So who should reach out to you these
Erica,
days?
yeah. Well, if you want to reach out to Erica, I'm not sure.
Or your alter ego, Erica.
Yeah, exactly. So for people who are, yes, the people who want to reach out to me, I encourage them to look me up on LinkedIn. I'm the only Kathleen VanDervort there, or email me at kathleen.vandervort@gmail.com. My sweet spot really is on CPG, restaurant, beverage, as well as that retail experience, being able to really connect with the customer on small to medium businesses, whether they just need someone to come in and kind of audit and give them some honest feedback and create a holistic strategy, or someone who's going to come in and be long-term and being able to help them in their day-to-day.
Okay, and through your so the LinkedIn's on screen, so go through LinkedIn first, right? Okay, and then Russell, how about you? Who should be contacting you these days, and how would you like them to do it?
The best way is through my website here, Marketing Plan Formula, or through, I'm trying to put everything I know up on YouTube. I mostly work with small business owners in the $10 to $20 million range, typically B2B. And we work building, your internal teams, putting numbers to everything, building a machine that can actually grow versus, this amorphous thing called a business. We try to systematize everything and make it literally an engine. We want to make a value driving engine out of your business. So if you're in that spot, I'd love to talk with you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I mean, that's it. Thanks very much for being here, Kathleen, not Erica, and Russell. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. According to the analytics, you're watching this in a clip, but just in case you watch the full episode, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.